Okay, ready.
Hello, everybody. We are now up to the visual version of session 2, which means you should have already received session 2 and ideally printed it out. If you print out each session, each monthly session, you will eventually have a little book, which we will add to and edit and make into a proper publishable, saleable book for the Seminole community. So hoping that you've read through it and you've practiced some of the stuff and have some questions. I haven't been getting any questions, but please don't be shy. If you have questions, email me. So let me go through it. I have it in front of me and I will talk my way through it and explain bits of it, okay? And stop me anytime you want. Okay, session 2, I say you should now have a sense of what sort of language Afro-Seminole Creole is. It is a Creole language, which means it emerged from really a situation of desperation where people, lots of people speaking lots of languages are brought together for different reasons, but not good reasons, not comfortable reasons, but they need desperately to talk to each other. And because we are human beings and we have this ability to create language, which only human beings can do, we come up with a structure that is part of our DNA. It's not a language, but it's a structure. If you imagine a framework of a language that doesn't have any words, but then we need words too. And the words will come from whatever the major language is that you hear around. And in the case of Seminole and the history of the Atlantic slave trade, different European nations involved in that. So if you've got the French slave trade, the people running the show are speaking French, Portuguese, Portuguese, Spanish, Spanish, Dutch, Dutch, but we talk about the English one. And so the Africans taken as captives in the slave trade run by the British, they're going to be seeing people in charge who are speaking English, and they're going to be hearing English, but they're not going to be sitting down with them for afternoon tea and having English lessons. They're hearing words, which is important, but more important given their situation, and we're going back 200, 300, even 400 years. They're looking at other Africans just like themselves, but they can't talk to them. How are they going to communicate and say, what the hell is going on? What's happening? And this is where these new languages come into existence. You hear a word, you hear eat, right? You're being told eat. You remember it and you know what it means. You don't know what to do with it because sometimes it's not just eat, it's eats. Sometimes it's eating. Sometimes it's ate. That stuff doesn't stay the same, but the word eat does. And you keep that, you handle the rest of it differently. And that's what Creole languages have done. Over time, those new languages develop into native languages. Children are born, they learn it, and it's their language. And that's what Afro-Seminole Creole, ASC, is. It has a fascinating history because it is an offshoot from another Creole, albeit practically the same Creole, spoken over on the southeast coast of the United States. It's what is now called Gullah or Geechee, or increasingly Gullah-Geechee. It's not exactly the same because it's separated from it. And I'm going to save the circumstances of that separation for something later on. Enough to say that because of historical circumstances, people speaking that ended up first in Oklahoma, well, first in Florida, then in Oklahoma, then in Mexico, then in Texas. What we have today are communities, descendants of communities in Oklahoma, Texas, and northern Mexico who speak or spoke what we are calling Afro-Seminole Creole. We call it, or y'all call it Seminole, but we should really call it Afro-Seminole because in Florida, Seminole means a couple of languages that the Native Americans speak over there. So we don't want to get confused. They are Native American languages. They are not ASC. All right. What I wanted to deal with today were the different ways of expressing the verb to be. If you think about be in English, it has a lot of different forms. You can say, it is good to be here. You could say, it's good that I am here. These are all different forms of be. So the ones I chose or picked out were covered by be, or be, of course, being, am, I am, thou art, he or she is, we are, I was, they were, thou wert. There's lots of different words that come under the heading of be in English. That verb be in English does a whole lot of work. What I have on the first page are examples of this. First of all, it joins nouns together. John is a teacher. John and teacher, they're both nouns. It can go in front of adjectives. John is happy, right? Happy is an adjective. It can go in front of verbs. John is singing. And it can locate a place. John is in the kitchen. So the English verb to be in all its various forms has a whole lot of work to do. In Seminole, it's handled very, very differently. And to speak the language well, you've got to get a handle on the different uses or the different ways to express be in Seminole. So let's look at those. First of all, to join nouns, like John is a teacher, the word is duh. I spell it here D-U-H, but it's duh. So John the teacher means John is a teacher. If it goes in front of an adjective, John is happy, well, you don't need it at all. Because, and I'll come back to this maybe later on, but adjectives in Seminole and in Creole languages generally are also verbs. So although happy means happy, in Creole grammar, it also is a verb that means to be happy. So you don't need the is, you can just say John happy. You don't need the is. Before verbs, John is singing, then we need that duh again. So John duh sing. John the sing means John is singing. And then last of all, it is a locating or an existing word. John is right here. John is in the kitchen. And now it has the form de. John de. Yeah, John is here. So that de has a very distinct meaning. The duh has two different meanings, but I'll come back to that later on. All right, so a bit more about this de, meaning to exist or to be in a place. So you could say, if you wanted to say, where is he? You could say, we de, or we say de. I gave the example, which is common in greetings and responses, and you find this also in a couple other Creoles. If you ask somebody, how's your family, you can easily just reply, Dende. That means they are there. More precisely, they exist. But what that really means is they're still there. Nothing has changed. Everything is cool. The day before Dende. If you wanted to say God is religiously, you could say God de. Okay, so that day is important. Okay, looking at page 2, down at the bottom onto page 3, a lot of new words, and I hope that you are saving these words in a separate file. It's easy to cut and paste and then put them in alphabetical order, make your own little dictionaries. I'll go through them quickly. A lot of them you'll know because they're the same as English. But they don't always mean the same as in English. That's important, and that's what would confuse teachers in classrooms. But I'll save that for later also. El means to have something wrong with you, or also to be bothered about something. So if you were to ask somebody, what a area or what a ailhana, it means what's bothering you? What's going on with you? What ail you? And there's that as well. What is bothering you? Ax is ask. This is not a mispronunciation of ask, and I'll have more to say about these sorts of words later on as well. It is a dialect word found in many parts of Britain today. Ax instead of ask. So it's not a mistake, it's what people heard in the first place. And all of the Creoles whose words are from English, they all say ox. And so does African American English for that matter. Before means before, but notice the vowel is before, not before or before, before. Bitty bitty, this is an African word. It means a little speckled hen. There are a lot of African words, but I'm going to save those from later on as well. Unless you keep chickens, you're not even going to know that word anymore. A lot of these words get lost because the culture changes. Biddle means food. It comes from victuals, which is the common way of pronouncing victuals. But bittle just means food. Another word for food is nyanya. Church is church. One thing about the pronunciation of African Seminole Creole is that you don't sound the R's after vowels. So it's church, not church. Da or dara means that. Dagya would mean that girl, or daragya means that girl. Dishya means this, but it has to be something close that you can see. Dishabuk would be something that you could actually point to. Enti is a common, it's what's called a tag, because you tag it onto the end of a sentence. And it means, isn't it, wasn't it, aren't I? Any kind of tag that turns a statement into a question. And there are a couple of more examples of this in the following session, the next session. Feather is feather. The th in English doesn't show up ever in Seminole. Gera means to collect or gather. Again, it is not a mispronunciation of gather. It is the way gather is pronounced in many parts of the British Isles, in Scotland, for example. And this is what the old European sailors spoke like. It's what the Africans heard, and it's what the Africans copied. So nothing has been changed here. It's more a question of simply being learned and retained. Gyal is another example of an early pronunciation. If you could have gone to England in 1700 or even 1800, you would have heard English people saying gyal and gyarden, and gamble and garlic, because that's how they spoke back then. And when we look at the roots of ASC, we have to go back to those times. We've got to go back a few hundred years and think about what was the first kind of English ever heard by Africans. And they heard gal, they didn't hear girl. Me. Okay, now this introduces another aspect of Creole grammar. Creole, as I said somewhere, is called an optimal grammatical system. That means it makes full use of what's there and doesn't use anything that's not necessary. In English, we have different forms of the first person pronoun. We've got the subject I, we've got the object me, we've got the possessive my. All of that is unnecessary. It all gets collapsed into simply me. Now, some Creoles, some relatives of ASC have me for everything. Jamaican, for example, would say me want instead of I want. Seminole is going to say I want, unless it is emphatic, in which case you're going to move the tone up a bit and say me want instead of I want. You hear it a lot in me no no instead of I no no. Well, I say you hear it a lot, you used to hear it a lot. Me no no, I don't know. Make is make, but it can also sometimes mean allow. Make I see. That's not too common in Seminole, which prefers to use le I see, meaning let me see. Mexo. Mexo is something you really need to remember because it means why. It's short, probably, from Wamexo. So think about that. Why didn't he do it? Wamexo inaduit. What made it be so that he didn't do it? Don't try to analyze Seminole words in where they came from. That won't help. It's interesting, and I will talk about it later, but if you're trying to learn the language, just learn it for what it is. Don't try and explain what the words come from. Mixo means why. Mixo hanadura, why did you do that? Yusfa, used to. Some of the African sounds are carried over, so the nya sound gets carried over. Anyusfa duam, I used to do it. More about that in next month's lesson 2. Boba is over. A lot of the V sounds in English are a B sound in Seminole, as in the other Creoles. So the word for angry, which is vex, in English, older English is vex, but it's vex in Seminole. Puppy show. This is an old-fashioned expression. You're the make puppy show. It means you're acting silly, you're showing out. And that's an English expression that goes back a very long way. Enough. Here's an example of an English word that doesn't mean the same in Seminole. And this is where teachers and students came to grief, because the students would be meaning one thing, but the teachers would be hearing something different. Enough, obviously, comes from enough. Now, in English, enough means the acceptable limit. I don't need any more. I've got enough. I don't need any more. In all of the Creoles, enough means a lot of. It doesn't mean an acceptable limit. It just means a whole lot. So, although enough people been did it, enough people were there, it doesn't mean numerically enough. It just means a whole lot of people. So that is a different thing. And if the teachers are understanding one thing and the kids are meaning another thing, you've got a problem that neither side is even aware of. Show enough. Well, everybody knows show enough. Mosquito is a mosquito. Swinge. Swinging, I don't know that anybody still does it, but it meant to hold the chicken over the flame to burn off the feathers so you could pluck them out easily. And again, it is a very common dialect word in Britain that's been preserved in Seminole. Tawa. Tawa means greedy, and this is another African word. I'll come back to that one. We is like me. It takes the English, we, plus us, plus our, plus ours, and collapses them all into just one word, we. So you can say, we to go, we are going. We house, our house. And you can say, Karen, go with we, come with us. So it can be us as well. Water, water means water. You gotta, it's not water the way it's spelled here, but water. And you gotta flip your tongue when you say water. Okay. And what? What is what? It's not the same as we. So I think to explain that better, I need to give you some more examples, more sentences that separate that out. All right, I have asked all of you to say, or to translate on your own, where is John? And if you were all on this screen, and I can see Amadou on there, keeping very quiet, I would be asking you to tell me how you say these things. So I will say it for you. And you can be honest with yourself about whether you got it right or not. So where is John? You would simply, well, you could simply say, where John? Or a bit longer, you could say, wisse, which means where, John de, meaning to be in a place. Or even more, you could say, de, wisse John de. Where was John? You can say, wisse John been de. only 3 people are listening. Okay, you should know the word for listen or hear because it was on your first vocabulary list, which is yeri. Only is nama, and you know that because it's in the slogan of the organization, and it means only. So only 3 people are listening. You can say nama 3 people the yeri. Only 3 people are listening. Don't spill that water. Na true da water. Not true da water. First lesson, you learned that you put na in front and don't. It's also what you do for negative anything. She's greedy, isn't she? This introduces this tawa word for greedy, which you have memorized. And you can say itawa. Remember that I, once again, collapses all of the possible English forms, he, she, it, into one. So I can mean he, she, or it. Itawa, enti. She's ugly. She's greedy, no? Itawa, enti. What is it? Wa, there's that wa that I was just talking about. Wa, duh meaning the. Him. Now, him is the emphatic form of I. Some of the pronoun, all of the pronouns, in fact, have emphatic forms, but I'll get to those much later. Enough to say the emphatic form of I is him. So you could say idigo, meaning he is going, but if you wanted to emphasize that he is going, you can say him to go. And in a sentence like, what is it? You can say, what the him? What a him? What's the matter with you? Well, we've had this already. What a ail you? Or what a ail Hannah? John took Sally to church. Now, this word take in Creole, in Seminole, there's 2 words for take, really. One is to take, like you've got your hands out, you're taking something from somebody. But there's another word that English also has, but it's sort of old-fashioned, which is to carry. And in Seminoles, if you want to accompany somebody, if you want to take somebody somewhere, then you don't take them in your hand, you carry them, you accompany them. So if you want to say John took Sally to church, you would say John bin, because it's past tense, chiari or chia Sally to church. Y'all asked Sally to burn the feathers off this hen. Well, this is just so that you could use that word swinge. You can say Hannah, which is y'all. And in Seminole, Hannah, unlike any of the other Creoles, can be for one person as well as more than one person. The equivalent in other Creoles, it's only plural. But in Seminole, Hannah can be just you or all of y'all. So y'all ask Sally. Hannah asks Sally, not to burn, but for bun, for bun. He feathered them, but there's a word that means to burn the feathers, which is swinge. So you can say, Hannah asks Sally for swinge. He feathered them of the, well, say fowl or chicken or bitty little one. But I was looking for the word for burning of feathers. My brother's Volvo is red. 2 examples I was looking for for you to notice was no endings. So my brother's Volvo would be mi breda Volvo. And you don't use the be there, you don't need the is, because red already means to be red. So mi breda Volvo red. My brother's Volvo is red. A lot of mosquitoes are flying over our food. Enough mosquito to fly over we little. There is a word, I didn't put it on there, which means to fly. Maybe I did. I don't think I did, but it's zun. Zun means to be flying around in a noisy way. So you could say the mosquito then the zun over we little. Why are you showing off in front of the girls? Mexo, Hana, the make papi show before the gal then. Why are you showing off in front of the girls? Mexo, Hana, the make papi show before the gal then. How are y'all doing? How Hana do? And that's something you should say to all of us every month. Okay. Last of all, I have another recipe. This is an interesting one, conky, because it's found everywhere in the Creole world, but somehow the our Gullah, y'all, I keep saying y'all's Gullah cousins over on the East Coast seem to have lost this and the word, and maybe any of our Gullah speaking people watching, I know there's a couple, can correct me that the word is still remembered, but a conky is one of these universal Creole dishes, just like the akara last ones is. So looking at the recipe, and you've got a couple of pictures there, they're wrapped up in banana leaf, but in this country, well, we could use banana leaves. I got bananas growing outside right now here in Texas, but I think what Seminoles tend more to use is the corn husks. They're much more readily available, but whatever, you can cook these things. The thing is, you've got to wrap them up. And let me read it and explain sentence by sentence. Dish out of the way for make one of the most sumptuous kind of sweet bitter way the Seminole people use for cook. This is the way, dish out the way for make one of the most sumptuous kind of sweet bitter, one of the best kinds of. Now, sweet in English means sugary. In Creole, it doesn't just mean sugary, it just means tasty. So even a beef stew could be called sweet. And it's not, quote, sweet at all. So it just means tasty. Sumptuous is a word that just also means tasty. Where the Seminole people be used for cook. Now, where the Seminole people, the Seminole people used to cook. There's a been used for cook. All of that should be like water off the duck's back at this time with the grammar. Same laka de akara. Now laka means like. Same laka de akara, the same like or same as the akara. This come out of Africa too. This is from Africa also too. Hana and half a majority with can. Hana, y'all. N. Now N is our future, means will. Ha for measure. Y'all will have to measure everything, with can, with a can, with a tin. The kind where the condensed milk come in. the kind that the condensed milk came in. Probably nobody does that anymore, but back in the day, people saved tin cans, rinse them out, save them as measuring cups. So let's assume that we're doing it in the old way. You're going to have to use the size of tin can that you would buy 1 can of condensed milk in, so that size. Peach quite too big if I'm not plan for feed it with a bracket. Peach quite, that was another much bigger tin can that you would buy tin peaches. And it was I guess, a quart of peaches, but it was peach quite. That would be too big unless, as it says here, you're planning to feed the whole bracket milk. So you just use a smaller can. And then Hana and need, y'all will need 2 can corn flour, 2 cans of corn flour, not a coarse kind like a fili, not the coarse kind of corn flour like fili. Now fili is another probably African word that refers to a coarse grind of corn flour. So you don't want that. 1/2 can regular flour, 1/2 can of regular flour, I guess wheat flour. 1 can pumpkin, we're gonna be greater and good. 1 can of pumpkin that you have grated finely, so it's like 1 can sweet potato, we're gonna be greater and good. Another can of sweet potato that you have also grated. Grate means to grate something really well. How much butter Hana want, but you have a good and soft fuss. How much butter y'all want, but you have to be good and soft first. And good means to be good, so you have a good, it has to be good. And soft, has to be rich. In other words, milk. 1 can cow milk. 1 egg, not egg, but egg. You're gonna knock up good. You knock up a good means to beat it well. 1 can brown sugar. Raisin them or some kind of chop up fruit. So if raisins or some kind of chopped dried fruit. 1 spoon of nutmeg. Nutmeg is nutmeg, and a spoon is a spoon. Salty them, the Hana like them. Salt it. Salty is to salt something. So salt it to the point that you like it to taste, as they say. Oh, pit. Now pit is put. Pit everything choosing for the egg. Choosing for means except for. So pit everything choosing for the egg means put everything except the egg. In the milk and the milk, in the butter and the butter, in a mixing pot, and crabble them all together. Crabble means to, so you mix all of those things together in a pot. Then and throw in the yellow rest. Now yellow rest means everything else. Then and throw in. Then y'all are going to throw in the yellow rest, everything else, along with them, along with it, together with it, and mix everything together good. Mix everything together well till it turns like a bread dough, until it looks like, now tan lek or tan laka means to be like. It is the old expression to stand like something. Think about when you can hear in English people say, let me know how things stand, meaning how things are at the moment. Well, tan laka is very common in Gullah and Seminole to mean be like. So Mix everything together good till it turn like a bread dough until it bees like bread dough, that consistency of bread dough. Before bread dough time before Hana bake 'em. So it's got to look like bread dough looks before you start to bake. And post for drop out the poon when Hana hola mapo de bowl. It should be where it will drop off of the spoon when you hold the spoon over the bowl. You've stirred the dough around, but it should be able to drop off in a lumpy way off of the spoon. If it's too thick, if it's too thick, to fall off, I guess. Throw in the more milk. Throw in a little more milk. Loosen it up a bit. Ropam in cone shuck, same like a tamal. Rop is wrap, obviously. Ropam, wrap it in cone shuck. Cone shuck is the shucks from the corn. Same like a tamal. You wrap it the same you would do tamales. And put them on some kind of rack over one kittle where they were to buy. And put them on a rack of some sort over. Now, kittle doesn't only mean kettle, like a tea kettle, what you got in the kitchen. It can mean even a big pot can still be a kittle. So here it means put some sort of grill or grating over the top of a pot of boiling water and put the wrapped dough on over the boiling, so you're steaming what we've got going here. Left means leave it on top of it, on top of there, 1 hour. The whole time we've been for up, I mean banana leaf or kunte leaf. Now kunte is another word for a kind of palm tree. Used to use the leaves for this. So if some of them. So if you the old time, we've been a farop, I mean banana leaf or kuntelit. The old time is to wrap them in banana leaves or kuntelit palm tree leaves. So if you have either of those, that's good. And I have to tell Hana say, and enough I eat to chuck them. Well, that's just a silly bit I added. I don't have to tell y'all, don't eat chucks. And that is the recipe. And the last little bit on the second lesson was a bit of history. And it was about what the scouts used to live in on the Fort Clark grounds. Let me read this. There's a little picture there. Them Afro-Seminole people been build their house them on Las Moras Creek over to the fort. Time them in service scout for the ranger them during the last part of the 19th century. I hope you are understanding this more easily as I read it, because you should be recognizing a whole lot of the words and structures here. Let me do it one more time. Them early Seminole people been build them house them on Las Moras Creek over to the fort. And they've been served as scout for the ranger them during the last part of the 19th century. The kind of house we hunted to see, yeah, that's in the picture. The sort of houses that we're seeing here in these pictures called Hako house. Hako is the old Seminole word for that kind of building. The Indian then, in Dillon before the buck them Komya. The Indians, the natives, built houses like this before the white people even got it. For Bilam to build it, or to build them, gonna have to put 4 posts in the ground to make a square. You have to put 4 posts in the ground to make a square. Then gonna put enough more leaf posts and branch twixt them for hold up the wall. Then you have to put a bunch more little sticks, branches, and so on between the four corner posts along each side to hold up the wall that you're gonna put there. To make the full wall, to make the four walls, the patch tabi all over up. Tabi is a Seminole word for mud or clay as a building material. So the patch tabi all over them. You have to patch this clay or mud all over the branches all around the house to seal up all of the cracks. Now, notice that it's spelled Oberum, and there's a reason for that. The word for it, or him, or her, is but when that word comes after certain words that have a vowel on the end, it somehow does pick up an R sound. So you wouldn't say oba but you would say oba rum. That's why it's spelled like that. And for fix the roof, on a half a kibaram with long grass for making a len a ring get through. Now, kiba is another Seminole word. It comes actually from Scottish. It's cover, but it's kiba. Kiba. On a half a kibaram, you all have to cover it with long grass for making a len a rain get through, to not let no rain get through. If you know wisse for look, if you know wisse means where, for look, know where to look, and find, you will find, one two litres de mole Bucko house till yet, yande. You will find one or two little traces or evidence of those old Bucko houses up until now, here and there, yande. The Spanish word that kakal, tabi the Leon word for idea. And that brings us to the end of the second lesson, and we have some time left, as much as you want for questions. So what trusty, stalwart folks out there have questions? Amadou?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
How are you? I have a question actually.
Okay, go ahead.
I was wondering if you can explain when, like when you were doing the verb to be,
Mhm.
uh, when, how do you adjust for the tenses? I mean, I heard you making the different, using different words, but as a ASC speaker or beginner speaker, how would I know when to use to be in the present, past tense? What's the methodology there? Does that make sense? What I'm asking?
Well, there you can assume that any verb all by itself is automatically in the past tense.
Mm,
There's a short list of verbs that are only in the present tense. And maybe I'll list those later on, but very few. You can assume that a verb is already in the past tense when you use it. So I see him would mean I saw him or
mm-hmm.
her. There is another marker which everyone has had by now, which is bin, abin siam. There is a grammatical difference between asiam and abin siam.
Right.
They sort of both mean exactly the same thing, and it's not necessary at this point to distinguish the two.
Okay.
So if you're just going to stick with tense markers, then you've got bin for the past, atin siam, and you've got n for the future, ayan siam, which means I will see him or her or it. N, by the way, has an alternative form that you could hear, which is Gwen, Gwen Siam, and that shows where it comes from a bit more clearly because it comes in Guan and Guan Siam. But let's just stick to single forms right now and look at variations later on. So those are the tense words, and I was earlier today preparing the third session where I actually deal with all of this and look at other, not tense words, but what are called aspect words, like done. I done see 'em. That's not really when, but how. It means you've finished with seeing it. It's over with. So what you're not going to do is stick endings on anything. You're not going to change see to saw or walk to walked, for example.
Mhm.
Okay.
Sure. I have another observation, if you don't
All right.
mind. There's some things that you say that are exactly like I would say it in Creole, Sierra Leone's Creole, that is. For example, I think you had mentioned something about for Ture Wata.
Mhm.
Whatever you said is the same way I would say it, speaking Creole.
Yeah, because they're relatives. The two languages are relatives.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I
How
find
would
that
you say,
fascinating. Too.
let me, since you're there and people are listening, I did give, I think, some comparative sentences in the first session, but if I wanted to say in Seminole, where are y'all? I would say, Dowissa Huna De. How would you say it in African, Sierra Leonean Creole?
Usai una de.
You see how close they are?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and there's a reason, it's an explanation for that.
Right. I find that fascinating.
It is fascinating. Gabriel, is he still listening?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, you got a question?
Yeah, I did actually. If so for the question, where was John?
Mm-hmm.
I got that one wrong. So the correct version is Wissa John bin Day.
That would be where was John?
Right. Oh, sorry. Where was John is Wissa John bin Day, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
Does Wissa John bin also work or no?
Oh, no, bin is not a verb.
Right. It's a mark. Okay. It modifies the verb or.
Right.
Okay. That makes sense. So day, right. Because bin is modifying day and day is the verb.
Yes.
Got it. Okay.
But if he had said Usai John Day, that would have been correct.
Beside John B.
Usai John Day.
Oh, day.
Yeah, in relation to what he was trying to say.
Well, that would mean where is he right now?
That would be the present
Right.
tense, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
The other question I had, and maybe I'm jumping ahead, but so nama tree people the Yeti.
Only 3 people are listening.
Could you also say, because I have nama tree people the hockey? Or is that a different, like in a different context? Or
That is from another Creole.
oh, okay. I'm sorry. I ran into it in the dictionary that we got sent, the bracket.
Hockey, did you find hockey in there?
Yeah, I found it in there. So that's why I just wanted to, so, but yet we should stick to Yeti.
Well, if you found it in there,
Uh-huh.
that is interesting because it means I was given that word.
Mm,
I generally associate that with Jamaican and other Creoles, but if I was given the word, there's nothing in the words and the grammar that I collected over the years that I never heard and never double checked. So if it's in there, it means I heard it from maybe Miss Charles or from Ethel or somebody.
okay.
But yeah, if it's there, then I guess you can say it. And I have to, once again, apologize for my crappy pronunciation. I'm doing my best.
I have a question.
Uh-huh.
With using the pronoun e, am I saying it around like e, or is it f?
No, it's E.
E?
Yeah.
Does it ever get lost in the sentence where it's just not used at all, but assumed that it's being used?
Give
Does that
me
make sense?
give me an example of what you.
So let me see. Let's say we said John walk, like John is walking.
Yeah, John DeWalt.
I guess I'm answering my own question. John walk, Ben walk. Like, so John is walking, he been walked, but you don't put that subject in this sentence. So it's just like the verb that's holding the sentence together.
You really cannot leave anything out.
Because it's already such a very sparse.
You're using every bit of available grammar in the most streamlined way possible. There's nothing that you don't need.
Okay.
And I may have said this earlier too. English is so full of grammatical stuff that's totally unnecessary.
Yeah.
You know, why do we have to say thought? We say, I think, I thought. What's wrong with thinked? We
Yeah.
say walked, what's wrong with thinked? And yet we do. So Creole doesn't waste time with that. There was no time to mess with that.
Very true. So that subject is there because it needs to be there
It needs
to hold that. Yeah.
Yeah. If you think about Spanish, for example, for my language, Romani, you don't need the pronouns because the verbs have endings on.
Okay.
You know that if you say canto, it can only mean I am singing. Because the O tells you don't need the yo. But if you don't have those endings, then you have to use the pronoun.
Are you there?
I have a question about the pronoun. So the emphatic form of, I'm sorry if I misunderstood it. So the emphatic form of E is him?
Yeah.
And that's even when you're talking about a female?
Yep.
Wow. Okay. That's interesting. That's so interesting.
Yeah.
There's plenty of languages don't distinguish between male and female.
Male and female. Yeah.
Hungarian, for example, just has the one word for he and she and it. And most of Chinese, same thing.
Wow.
That's really cool. I thought it was interesting too because of how difficult some English speaker or how some English speakers grapple so much with the concept of gender neutral pronouns, even though they're found in so many different languages. So I think it's just I just thought it was cool.
Even in English, if you think about it, unlike Spanish, in English, you distinguish the gender in the singular, he and she, but you don't do it in the plural.
No.
It's only they, right?
That's true. Yeah. Only in English. Yeah.
In Spanish, you've got a
Yeah.
feminine they
Yeah.
and a masculine they, but not in English.
Yeah.
Nobody's complained about that.
Right.
Gloria is being very quiet.
Very quiet.
Maybe she's gone to fix dinner. So, Wendy, this has all been taped, and
Yes.
what do? You just send it bit by bit to whoever wants to see it?
Yeah, if anybody emails me and say, hey, I didn't make it, I send it to them, but I should just send it to everybody. That's what I can do that like later on tonight, just send everything to everybody. And then you'll be sending.
I would send it to everybody and let them watch it in their own time, because we've just got these faithful few.
Yeah.
And
So yeah, so I'll send it ahead of you sending lesson 3, so everybody can get caught up with that.
yeah.
And yeah, and I guess we can send out another email asking, can we upload to YouTube? I don't know. That's a good question. Can we upload to YouTube? I'll have to find out if we can do that. I don't know. I'm not technologically savvy.
Neither am I. I don't do all of that stuff.
Yeah, that's a good question though. But Gloria, I think we're gonna start a Facebook page, and maybe that'll be easier to communicate in that way, like more readily with people.
What about a blog? What is a blog?
A blog, where would we even put the blog? Because we could do like a just a website that's dedicated to that, and I think that would be interesting to just sort of show our progress. A blog, how would we do that?
I think a blog would have to have like a hosting site or a
yeah, so like WordPress or someplace like that.
I don't know how to do a blog, but maybe somebody.
But we could definitely talk about that and see, just so that, yeah, because it is a great way to, I mean, I know that you could either do like videos, or you could do, writing and just giving progress about everything that's happening.
I just got invited onto a Sierra Leonean blog, which looks pretty good. It's got a bunch of stuff on it from a bunch of contributors.
Okay.
And maybe that's what we should be thinking about.
Yeah, I think that's, yeah. Can you send the link to us so we can check it out?
You got to sign on to it and get paid onto it. But I don't see why they wouldn't want you to. Probably Amadou knows more about it than I do. Not so?
Well, there are quite a bit. I mean, some people do it on WhatsApp, or some people do it on Facebook, or traditional emails.
Okay.
A group list. Yeah, I mean, I think Facebook makes the most sense because of its accessibility.
Yeah.
Okay.
And yeah, if we want to open it up to the public, which I think is a good idea.
Yeah.
Get more people, engaged.
The benefit of the Facebook group too is like people can ask questions, and then
And
you can make it as private as you want to be, so it can be just people involved in the class, and then their questions if they're doing the homework and they just want or like
want a quick question or something, or
All right.
But we do have 7 participants in this Zoom right now, so that's good. That's an increase from the last one. So that's good. So I do appreciate everybody coming on. Yeah.
I predict that within the next 2 sessions, we will have covered the grammar. And so for the next sessions following that will be some history and stuff like that. Plus each time a story or part of a story, because we still have to go through texts and understand language. And be able to use it. So that's what we've got to look forward to.
Yeah, and our next session is scheduled to take place during Seminole Days. So our next session is in September. So we definitely want for everybody who is interested to be ready for that, because it will take place that day. I think it's the 18th of September.
Mhm.
So it'll be that afternoon sometime. And then
How many people are you expecting to show up on the 18th? Or for the visit?
right now, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. To be honest, it's I think our number and our expectations have decreased a little, to be honest.
Because of the
We
COVID?
definitely want to take yeah, because of COVID.
Yeah,
Yeah. So and and a lot of people are saying that they're not coming because of to be cautious. So what we're wanting to do is make sure that everybody who can access our who's not coming can access the Zoom or whatever other platform we have it on, whether it's like Facebook Live or Instagram Live or somewhere like that.
all right.
So but yeah, so we'll see how everything turns out. But yeah, right now, just want to take all the precautions.
Okay,
sense.
well, I guess that wraps it up for today.
Yeah, so I will hopefully get this out earlier. I don't know if it's, the timing. So, but yeah, I think within the meantime, we should definitely start a Facebook group, probably a private. I'll probably be asking Gabriel for some help. Sounds like he knows
Yeah.
a little bit. I've never started a Facebook group before, so I don't know. So, but I think that probably is the best thing to do. And yeah, we can communicate a lot easier that way, I'm guessing,
Okay,
without abandoning the email process.
well, this is all good.
Wendy, we can connect via chat, and I think
Okay,
we'll be friends with more people on Facebook.
Yeah.
So we can figure that out.
thank
Very
you
good.
so much.
Okay, see you soon.
All right, y'all. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.